In the year 2026, humanity faced an unprecedented challenge. High above Earth, amidst the celestial playground of stars and nebulae, a portal of unimaginable scale and energy burst open. From this swirling vortex emerged the Daelier, a race of beings who had transcended mortality through technology and evolution. Their skins shimmered like polished chrome under the sun's gaze, and their eyes glowed with the cold light of distant stars. This superior race had decided to expand their empire, and Earth was their next target. The arrival of the Daelier was silent but spectacular. As they descended in their sleek, iridescent ships, the skies over major cities turned into canvases of awe and fear. They issued no demands, no declarations of war. Their intent was clear as their ships positioned themselves strategically around the globe. Humanity was caught off guard. Governments scrambled jets and missiles, but they might as well have been throwing stones at the gods. The Daelier ships were protected by energy shields that dissipated all forms of human attack into harmless flashes of light. General Marcus Vinson of the United Defense Initiative watched the scenes unfold from his command center, a grim realization setting upon his weathered face. "They've made a grave mistake," he muttered to himself. Despite their advanced technology, the Daelier had underestimated humanity's resilience. Within days, a resistance was formed. Labeled as Earth's Final Stand, EFS, this coalition comprised military forces from every capable nation and volunteers, driven by desperation and the raw human instinct to survive. General Vinson was appointed as the leader, his tactical acumen and experience deemed crucial in this dire time. In the underground bunkers of the EFS, humanity's brightest minds gathered to devise a plan. Dr. Elena Mirova, a leading expert in alien technology, proposed a daring strategy. Their shields may be impervious to our weapons, but they rely on a specific energy signature. If we can replicate and invert that frequency, we might just disrupt their defenses, she explained, her voice a mix of hope and scientific curiosity. Meanwhile, in the streets of New York, amidst the chaos and crumbling structures under the oppressive presence of a Daelier mothership, a different kind of meeting was taking place. A group of survivors, led by an ex-military officer named Jack Sanders, decided to take matters into their own hands. Jack, a rugged man with a scar tracing down his left cheek, spoke with fiery conviction. "We need to show them that this is our planet, our home. We fight not just to survive, but to reclaim what's ours." As the EFS worked on their high-tech solution, Jack and his band of rebels focused on guerrilla tactics, sabotaging Daelier operations and rescuing captured humans. Each skirmish was small but symbolic, a testament to human tenacity. In the shadows of this brewing conflict, another force watched and waited. The Sentinels, a secretive group that had long warned of extraterrestrial threats, now stepped forward. With knowledge of cosmic entities and interstellar politics, they offered a different perspective on the invasion. The Daelier are fleeing from something worse than themselves. They seek not just a new home but a sanctuary, revealed Cassandra, a Sentinel elder, during a clandestine meeting with General Vinson. As Earth braced for the inevitable confrontation, the skies bled red with the setting sun, mirroring the resolve and rage in the hearts of its people. The battle for Earth was not just a fight for survival, but had become a crucible for humanity's spirit. The Daelier, in their hubris, had indeed made a critical error. They had awakened the indomitable will of a united human race, ready to defend their home against any threat, mortal or immortal. Beneath the war-torn streets of Paris, in the labyrinthine tunnels where the echoes of the past met the urgency of the present, General Marcus Vinson convened with the leaders of Earth's Final Stand. The air was thick with determination and the electric buzz of strategy. Maps and screens illuminated their faces with the harsh light of reality, each flicker a reminder of the looming threat above. "We have one shot at this," Marcus stated, his voice resonant against the stone walls. "Dr. Mirova's device is ready, but we need to get it aboard their flagship. That's where you come in, Jack." Jack Sanders, leaning against the rough tunnel wall, nodded solemnly. His team was ready, a motley crew of fighters who had more courage than military training. But courage was what they needed most. "We'll get it there. Just make sure your tech heads got the science right." Elena Mirova stepped forward, adjusting the glasses that seemed perpetually on the verge of slipping from her nose. The device inverts the delir's shield frequency, creating a feedback loop. It won't hold long, but it should give us a few minutes of vulnerability. Enough time for you to do what needs to be done. As the Resistance formulated their plan, the Dalir continued their systematic conquest. Their leader, Sovereign Tyrell, observed Earth from his command center in the flagship. He was a figure of both awe and fear, his frame more machine than flesh, his mind sharp as the quantum processors that augmented his thoughts. "Let them scurry," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Their efforts are as futile as their ancestors' first steps into the cosmos." Back on Earth, Jack's team moved through the night, their movements a shadow dance among the ruins. They rendezvoused with a unit of the EFS who had managed to capture a small Dalir scout ship. After a brief but intense exchange of gunfire, they secured the vessel. Jack's tech specialist, a young prodigy named Leah, worked her magic on the alien controls. "It's now or never," she said, firing up the engines that hummed with an alien purr. The scout ship, cloaked and silent, slipped through the Dalir blockades, a ghost amidst the titanic war machines. Above them, the flagship loomed like a second moon, its surface smooth and impenetrable. Inside, the Resistance fighters steeled themselves for what might be a one-way mission. As they approached the underbelly of the flagship, Jack glanced at his team, each face set with the resolve of those who have nothing left to lose. "Remember why we're here," he whispered into the comms. "For Earth. For freedom." They breached the hull undetected thanks to Leah's quick work with the Dalir technology. Inside, the corridors were sleek and oppressive, the air thick with the scent of ozone and the silent hum of advanced technology. They moved with precision, planting the device right at the heart of the ship. The moment Leah activated the device, a ripple of energy surged through the flagship. Lights flickered and alarms wailed, a cacophony of sound in a realm of silence. "Now!" Jack yelled, leading the charge towards the central chamber where they hoped to confront Sovereign Tyrell directly. As they burst into the chamber, they found Tyrell waiting, as if he had foreseen their arrival. His gaze was calculating, his stance unyielding. "You believe you have won," he intoned, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But you have merely played into the hands of destiny." The showdown was brief but intense. Every shot and maneuver carried the weight of humanity's desperate fight for survival. As the device began to overheat, threatening, the energy feedback loop within the Dalir flagship initiated a catastrophic cascade failure throughout its systems. Sovereign Tyrell, his mechanical limbs seizing under the stress of the malfunction, struggled against the human intruders, his strategic mind recalculating scenarios in rapid, desperate succession. Jack and his team exploited the chaos, ducking and weaving through blasts of errant energy as the ship began to come apart around them. "Move! We have to get off this death trap!" he shouted, leading the charge back toward the stolen scout ship. Outside, the Earth's skies were alight with the glow of battle. The Dalir Armada, now aware of the sabotage, reacted with ruthless precision, launching waves of fighters to quell the uprising. The Resistance forces, emboldened by Jack's successful mission, met them head-on, their aircraft weaving through the barrage of laser fire like dancers in a deadly ballet. Elena Mirova, monitoring the situation from the Resistance's command center, kept her eyes glued to the screens, her heart racing as she watched the blips representing Jack and his team make their precarious escape. Come on," she whispered, her voice drowned out by the din of strategic commands and radar signals. Back on the flagship, as the last of his team buckled in, Jack looked back at the imploding behemoth. The thought that this might just be the turning point spurred a rare smile on his face. With a nod to Leah, they punched it, the small ship lurching forward just as the flagship began its final descent into oblivion. The explosion was monumental, a blinding burst of light that briefly outshone the sun, casting long shadows over the continents below. In its wake, a shockwave rippled through the Dalir formations, scattering them in disarray. On the ground, Marcus watched the sky clear momentarily as the alien ships retreated, regrouping for what would undoubtedly be a fierce counterattack. He grabbed his radio, his voice resolute. "All units, this is our moment. Push forward." The resistance surged with renewed vigor, their ground forces moving through cities and forests, reclaiming territories one block at a time. Civilians, once cowering in shelters, now aided in the efforts, providing makeshift weapons and support to the tired but unyielding fighters. Meanwhile, the Sentinels convened in their hidden sanctuary, their ancient texts spread out before them. Cassandra, her eyes scanning the prophetic writings, felt a chill run down her spine. "This is not the end," she murmured. "The Daliers' fear. What drove them here? It's still out there." Her words went unheard in the din of battle, but deep in space, far beyond the solar system, a dark presence stirred. The void itself seemed to pulse with anticipation, a cosmic threat that had observed the fall of the Dalier flagship and now turned its gaze upon Earth. As the Resistance celebrated their small victory, unaware of the greater danger, Jack and his team landed amidst the ruins of what was once a bustling metropolis. They stepped out of the ship, their bodies weary but spirits high. "We did it," Leah breathed, looking up at the stars that now seemed a little less threatening, a little more like the home they were fighting for. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes reflecting the fire of the battle and the stars above. "We've won the battle, Leah. But the war is just beginning." As the last embers of the flagship's destruction faded in the sky, a cold silence settled over the command center of Earth's final stand. Marcus Vinson, his face lit by the dim glow of tactical displays, received the reports streaming in from around the globe. The Dalier Armada was in disarray, their coordination disrupted, providing a precious opportunity for human forces to regroup and reinforce. Meanwhile, the void beyond the edge of the solar system whispered with the movements of something ancient and immense. The Sentinels, aware of this looming threat, intensified their efforts to understand and prepare. In the shadowy confines of their enclave, Cassandra pored over artifacts and ancient scripts, her fingers tracing the lines of symbols that few eyes had seen and fewer still could comprehend. "The Dalier were running from this," she explained to a gathering of her peers, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous room. "Their invasion was not merely expansionist, it was existential. They sought refuge from something even they feared." Back on Earth, Jack Sanders and his team, now celebrated as heroes, struggled with the transition from the adrenaline-fueled urgency of battle to the slower, but no less dangerous phase of the war. In a makeshift camp under the remnants of an old warehouse, Jack met with his team to discuss their next steps. "We've struck a blow, yes," Jack admitted, pacing before the assembled fighters. "But we've barely scratched the surface. The Dalier are down, not out. And whatever scared them into fleeing to our system is still out there." Leah, still tinkering with alien technology salvaged from their missions, chimed in. "I've been analyzing the data from the flagship's computers. It's mostly corrupted, but I found references to an entity or force they called the Consuming Shadow. It seems to be some sort of cosmic predator." The revelation hung heavily in the air, a stark reminder that their victory was potentially the prelude to a far greater challenge. Jack nodded gravely. "Then we need to be ready. We need to understand this threat just like we did with the Dalier." Meanwhile, Marcus organized a global summit, bringing together leaders from the surviving nations to form a unified defense strategy. The urgency of the situation fostered unprecedented cooperation among the leaders, who historically had been divided by nationalistic pride and political agendas. In orbit, the remnants of Earth's satellite networks were repurposed to create a surveillance web, scanning the depths of space for any sign of the so-called consuming shadow. Technicians and scientists, some of whom had never believed they would apply their expertise to such fantastical and terrifying scenarios, worked tirelessly. Amidst all this, a new signal was intercepted. Not from the direction of the Dalier retreat, but from the opposite quadrant of space. The message was fragmented, but its content was clear enough to chill the bones of all who heard it. "Sanctuary. Denied. The shadow consumes. Marcus listened to the playback, his experienced eyes narrowing. This isn't just about survival anymore, he spoke to his aides and military strategists. This is about securing the future of all life on Earth against a threat that devours civilizations. We beat the Dalier with bravery and brains. We'll need even more of both to face what's coming. Preparations began in earnest. Earth, once a divided planet of disparate nations and conflicting interests, was rapidly transforming into a unified stronghold, a bastion of life and light against the encroaching darkness of the void. As engineers built defenses, as Earth's defenses solidified under the shared threat, the sense of urgency transformed into a palpable tension that stretched across the globe. Every satellite and deep space radar was now a beacon, a watcher against the dark. In the command centers, the continuous hum of machinery and murmur of voices served as a backdrop to a world bracing for the unknown. Cassandra, with her deep knowledge of ancient cosmic lore, stood before the newly formed Earth Defense Council, a congregation of the planet's most powerful leaders and brightest minds. She unrolled a series of ancient cloth maps studded with celestial charts and pointed to a cluster of stars known in the Sentinel archives as the Cradle of Shadows. "This," she said, indicating the dense cluster with a thin, steady finger, "is where we believe the consuming shadow originates. Our oldest texts speak of a darkness so profound that it swallows light, life, and the very essence of being." Meanwhile, in a covert research facility, Leah and her team worked around the clock, reverse engineering the Dalier technology. They had managed to adapt some of the alien energy systems into a prototype weapon they hoped could disrupt the metaphysical fabric of the consuming shadow. The weapon, dubbed the Luminous Lance, emitted a concentrated beam of hyper-frequency light capable of piercing through the dark energy believed to constitute the shadow's essence. Jack Sanders, now more of a guerrilla leader than a mere survivor, trained squads of special operatives. These units, known as Shadow Stalkers, were to be deployed in the event of an encounter with the shadow entities. They practiced in simulations and controlled environments, preparing for scenarios that seemed as much science fiction as they were stark reality. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of dying orange, a series of alarms blared across the monitoring stations. The surveillance network had detected anomalous readings approaching from the Cradle of Shadows. The data was erratic, almost as if the object itself was intermittently phasing in and out of reality. Marcus Vinson, overseeing operations from the primary command center, issued the orders. "All units on high alert. Initiate Operation Light Shield. We're not letting anything through until we know what it is." The Global Defense Network, a mesh of satellites armed with the Luminous Lance technology, prepared to engage. On the ground, people looked up at the sky, some with fear, others with defiance. The sense of a shared fate had united humanity in a way never before seen. As the anomaly drew closer, it became apparent that it was not just one entity but a swarm, like a cloud of darkness blotting out the stars. The air tingled with static, and the temperature dropped, a physical manifestation of the approaching shadow. Jack, suited up in a specially designed combat suit enhanced with Dalier-derived technology, stood ready with his team at a strategic interception point. "Remember, these things aren't just coming for our planet, they're coming for our souls," he briefed his team, his voice a gravelly tone of solemnity. As the first of the shadows entered Earth's upper atmosphere, the satellites coordinated their fire. Beams of brilliant light cut through the night, meeting the dark swarm in a spectacle that would have been beautiful if not for the existential dread it carried. The initial blasts of light seemed to dissipate parts of the swarm, but it was quickly apparent that there were too many. On the ground, the Shadow Stalkers engaged. The darkness, when it met the Earth's surface, materialized into forms both grotesque and amorphous, shadows given shape and malice. The battle was fierce, the outcome uncertain. Throughout the night, as battles raged both in the heavens and on the ground, humanity fought not just for survival, but for the very essence of their world. The struggle was a testament to their unity, their technology, and their indomitable spirit. Each flash of light. The night grew darker as the battle intensified, the sky a canvas of intermittent flashes from the luminous lances, striking against the relentless advance of the consuming shadow. Earth's defenders, both in space and on the surface, coordinated their efforts in a desperate symphony of survival. Each blast of light from the orbiting satellites carved swaths of emptiness into the advancing darkness, but each victory was temporary, the shadows regenerating at an alarming rate. In the war rooms and command centers, the tension was palpable. Marcus Vincent's face, illuminated by the light of a dozen screens, showed the strain of command. His voice, though steady, carried the weight of imminent peril as he communicated with field commanders and defense units globally. "Hold the line," he urged. "Reinforcements are on their way. We fight until dawn and beyond if necessary." Cassandra, surrounded by her sentinel brethren, chanted ancient incantations, hoping to bolster the planet's defenses through mystical means that had been mere legends until now. Their voices, low and resonant, seemed to weave through the very fabric of reality, strengthening the resolve of those who fought and perhaps even the physical barriers protecting them. On the front lines, Jack Sanders led his shadow stalkers with grim determination. Each encounter with the shadow forms tested their limits and their fears. Jack's suit, enhanced to counteract the draining effect of the shadows, glowed with a soft blue light, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. He moved through the battlefield like a wraith, his movements a blur as he engaged the shadow entities directly, each strike a calculated risk. As the hours passed, casualties mounted. The defenders grew weary, their energy waning under the relentless assault. It was then that Leah's voice crackled over the communication network, a spark of hope in the grim scenario. "We've modified the luminous lances for one final concentrated burst. It's now or never." Gathering the remaining energy reserves from around the globe, the satellites aligned for a coordinated strike. On the ground, every available light weapon was charged and pointed skyward, creating a network of beams converging on a single point in the upper atmosphere where the shadows were thickest. Marcus gave the order, his voice resolute. "Fire all weapons!" The sky lit up as if the sun had risen prematurely. A column of blinding light shot up from Earth, piercing the night, its intensity magnified by every satellite and ground unit pouring their energy into the collective strike. The light met the dark swarm with a force that shook the very air, a thunderous collision of cosmic wills. For a moment the world held its breath. Then, slowly, the shadows began to dissipate, evaporating like mist at sunrise. The darkness retreated, pulling back to the void from whence it had come, its advance halted by the fierce light of human defiance. As dawn broke, the first true light in what felt like an eternity, it revealed a battered but unbeaten world. Cities lay in ruin, landscapes altered, but the spirit of humanity burned brighter than ever. People emerged from shelters and safe houses, their eyes wide with the dawn of a new day. They had faced the darkest night and emerged into the light. Jack, his armor scorched and dented, clapped a tired but firm hand on Leah's shoulder. "We did it, kid," he said, a tired smile breaking across his face. Leah looked up at the sky, now clearing, and nodded. "We did. But this is just the beginning, isn't it?" Jack's smile faded slightly as he looked toward the horizon. "Yes, it's a beginning. Every end is a new beginning. We know what's out there now. We'll be ready." Across the planet, as the remnants of the night's terror receded, Marcus Vincent addressed the world, his voice not just one of a military leader, but of a global protector. "Today we have not just survived, we have prevailed. But let this night be a lesson and a warning. We must stand united, always vigilant, always ready, for the darkness may return. But as long as we stand together, there will always be light." Humanity had indeed survived the night.